Job growth starts at home. My guests this morning provide evidence, and that's next on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. The first order of business is the 10th annual Governor's Business Plan competition, the deadline for which is nearly upon us. But there's more to this story than just competition and prizes. This is also about lagging job growth in Wisconsin and ways to counter that. The competition is one strategy, but there are others as well. My guests today are Wisconsin Technology President Tom Still and the winner of last year's Governor's Business Plan competition, Remus Boinevicius, co-creator of Row Wheels. And thank you both very much for joining me this morning.
Oh, thanks so much, Neil.
Tom, if you could start again just by describing the Business Plan contest and what its goals are and how it kind of ties into this broader theme.
Sure. This is our 10th year, and it is, over time, has attracted 2,300 entries. 240 some unique communities around Wisconsin have had at least one entry. And the goal is to really help entrepreneurs get up and running. It is all about having them get a start on their business plan, maybe take an idea off the shelf, off the back of a napkin, wherever it may be, begin that process and write their plan in stages so that they're closer to reality and in some cases have a chance of attracting investors, other partners, beginning to make sales, whatever it may be for that company. So there are entrepreneurs everywhere in Wisconsin, and this contest is about trying to tease that out and give them a leg up.
Now, we want to be clear right from the outset that there is time for people to apply for this contest yet.
Absolutely, because we start with only 250 words, which is in essence an elevator pitch. There's plenty of time. 5 o'clock p.m., January 31st, is the deadline for entry. It's all online at our website, govsbizplancontest.com. And it's simple to enter. It's free. You can enter as many times as you want. And really, you just basically have to have an idea and a sense of how you want to project that in terms of what's the product or service, what's your competition, what's your marketing strategy, how much competition is there. Those are the kinds of things we want to know in the first round.
Yeah. So people have 5 days now to enter.
Exactly. And we always see a surge of entries at the end. Sure. It's not unusual for people to wait to close to the deadline and maybe polish their idea and then enter. It happens all the time.
And what are the prizes? What does one get for winning this contest?
Well, the total prize purse in the past has averaged about $200,000 a year. Part of that's cash, part of it's in-kind prizes, office space, accounting help, legal help, marketing help, a variety of things that are needed by entrepreneurs to help get up and running. And so Remus was the grand prize winner from last year, and he shared in a mix of cash and services, and I think it's worked for him. So it's a mix of prizes, but certainly valuable. The most valuable thing, though, is all past contestants tell us, is the ability to take part, get some feedback, network with others like themselves, and just go through the process.
Yeah. Remus, certainly there are some viewers who will remember you from founding Sonic Foundry and the impact that business had locally. So that raises the question, in terms of Row Wheels, talk about that idea and why the business plan contest appealed to you in this new venture.
Yeah, well, I've written lots of business plans in my life, but I felt that this program was very rigorous in terms of the step-by-step progression as you went through each stage if you made it. And I think we had, what, 3 or 4 stages, Tom, but in essence we kept building the plan over that time period. So first 250-word boilerplate, give me the best idea, the elevator pitch, and then build upon it. It really got our team together to really think through the business plan and maybe help formalize a process that you might not normally do unless you were actually forced into it. It gave us a lot of answers very quickly, which we needed.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about Row Wheels. What is it?
Yeah, it's a great product. We actually brought this product up from Florida. So it's an invention from a quadriplegic who is a NASA engineer, and he's been handicapped for about 18 years. He was hit by a drunk driver, and he has been successful professionally, but he had a vision for a whole new way in which manual wheelchairs should work. And I experienced my own problems with the wheelchair. I broke my leg, spent 8 weeks in a wheelchair, and I really identified with the problem. I went looking for a solution really for just my own use. And we ran across each other, and I explained to him how we accelerate businesses and get things going, and one thing led to another, and here we are. We wrote the business plan, won the contest, and now we're a year down the road in terms of building a business.
So how does the wheelchair work? Why is it different from
So
standard?
it's basically a pull-based motion. So most wheelchairs, on a manual wheelchair, you push the handrim, and it goes in sync with the wheel. In our case, what you're doing is using 8 of 9 of the major muscles. You're pulling, which is actually the normal motion of a human being. If you go back millions of years into the wild, a pull-based motion is where you get your power. And so the reason we haven't seen this, it's a more expensive process to make because we're putting a reverse gear in the wheel. But we just came back from a fabulous test at the VA hospital in Milwaukee, and we put it in the hands of some patients for the first time, some quadriplegics and paraplegics. They absolutely loved it. And so we're getting through the manufacturing now, or engineering stage, I should say, and we're about to enter the manufacturing this year.
It's interesting that you use those words because this is the marriage of technology and manufacturing that, you know, maybe a big part of the future of this economy.
Yeah, and we convinced the inventor, Salim, down in Florida, really sold him on the fact that we have advanced manufacturing, we've got medical technology, and we also have this wealth of bicycling, motorcycling expertise.
Right.
So when we build a business, I could think of no better product to build row wheels in terms of a state than Wisconsin. We just have a wealth of experience here to help us.
And so what stage is the business in right now? And I mean, what kind of growth potential does this have?
We spun this out of our accelerator as a standalone company back in July, and we proceeded to start raising money. We were qualified under the Wisconsin QNBV program, the tax credit program, in October, and we wrote a private placement. We've been raising money on the offering, and so we're in that process right now. So we've been successful in raising about half of our offering, and we continue to source some capital on that initiative, and we're hiring our first employees, and basically tooling is being built in other parts of the state. We're sourcing parts from around the world, actually, and so it's a very laborious process, but very deep in terms of getting everything built up and tested. So,
like you said, I mean, you've rolled companies like this out on your own before. You could have rolled this one out on your own. What was the benefit of winning the contest?
Yeah, well, this is a little different industry. I've been in the software hardware business for quite some time. It's a little bit far afield for me. Some people thought, you know, advanced manufacturing and all that. My previous life, however, I've been in manufacturing, so I felt pretty comfortable with it. But I think it was really reintegrating ourselves into the whole ecosystem of the startup scene, and it's a lot different than 20 years ago. We were down on Willie Street 20 years ago or so and getting Sonic Foundry going, and there was nothing out there except for the MG&E plant. And now it's changed. It's really become much more vibrant, and also the programs from the state and government side of things, the investment side of things has really changed. And so it was a great program to actually get back into that network and see what the action was like.
All right, we're going to talk more about the competition and also about job growth in the state when we come back right after this. And the 2013 Governor's Business Plan Contest, the deadline is coming up this week, January 31st at 5 p.m. And we're talking about the business plan contest this morning with Tom Still, who is the president of the Wisconsin Technology Council, and Remus Boinavicius, who won last year's Governor's Business Plan Contest, the founder of Row Wheels. And Tom, there was mention of a students contest as well. Maybe you should just mention that.
Sure.
briefly.
That's our Wisconsin YES Student Business Plan Contest, and the YES stands for Youth Entrepreneurs in Science. It's a sister contest to the Governor's Business Plan Contest. We did it statewide for the first time last year. We had done some Dane County only pilots before that. It's a great way for students to do essentially the same kind of business plan, although in a briefer form than what's taking place in the adult contest. And you know, it's all about engaging them and thinking about their own ideas, and it's also a writing exercise, and it's a way to really pull out of them some of those great ideas and just get them engaged. It was really a good exercise last year.
We had a winner on, or we had some contestants on this show within the last couple of years, and what I remember, I think, is a cooler that was a water purifier.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And that it was designed for, in essence, kind of third world use because
Yeah.
it was easily done, inexpensively constructed, easily deployed. And so the student who designed that, who's now, by the way, at the College of Engineering at the UW-Madison, no surprise there, right?
Right.
Had that idea and carried it out, and she did a great job.
Give us some other examples, just to provide some context. You know, Remus described row reels really well,
Yeah.
but just in terms of the breadth of business plans that you've seen or that you might expect to see.
Sure.
Give us.
Absolutely. There are 4 categories, and Remus, when he won, was in advanced manufacturing, which is a sweet spot for Wisconsin. I mean, we know how to build things, and as Remus described, you know, how he would source row wheels and where the manufacturing actually take place, he thought through the kinds of assets we have here. So that's one category. Business services is another, and that's often business-to-business plans that may leverage technology in some ways for products or services. That's a big category as well. Information technology. Last year, that was the largest of all the categories, where we got more entries in IT than anything else. And I think that right now that's being driven by the explosion really in mobile applications and mobile technologies, as that really redefines the internet and communications so broadly. And then life sciences. And life sciences has been historically the smallest of the categories, even though we tend to be pretty good at that in Wisconsin. But it's also one of the most capital intensive. So you sometimes see somewhat fewer plans in that category. Past winners, other good examples would be Vector Surgical out of Oconomowoc. And this was a great example of perseverance. Janet Phillips, who's their CEO, actually entered the contest 3 times. First year made it to the semifinals, second made it to the finals, third made it to the Diligent Dozen, which is the presentation stage, and won. Since then, they're in hospitals really at this point all over the world with their surgical instruments. So it's an example of a company that, you know, thanks to her perseverance and the great technology, they're up and running and doing some excellent things. So we've had a lot of winners over time in all of those categories, but I think it speaks to the depth and breadth of technology in Wisconsin and innovation.
For all I know, somebody's called you and asked you, Remus, how did you do it? You know, do you have any advice? But if they haven't and they did, what would you tell them? What advice would you give someone on how to think through this?
Well, I'd say first of all, surround yourself with a really good team, because I think if you're just a solo entrepreneur trying to write this plan, you're probably handicapped right out of the box because there's so much that goes into building a good business. So it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be part of the company. They could be really good advisors, and we have certainly a wealth of good business planning folks. I know that there are folks that help with business plan writing and structuring and thinking things through. Lawyers, accountants, patent attorneys, people like this are all out there as resources to help you structure a really good idea. We find also that sometimes you have a domain expertise. Let's say you're a university graduate student or something. You may have a lot of experience in the particular field, but maybe you haven't identified a proper market size. I think people will tend to get handicapped on things like this if they think too small. You know, a $10 million market, total market size, is not very exciting for people. So you might have a great business plan, but it's not really a great business opportunity. So having people, if you're a scientist or an engineer, that are more marketing, sales oriented can really help the process and build a good plan.
Makes sense.
And we have a lot of resources on the site itself.
Good, yeah.
That's where you can find templates and ways to go through the different phases, background material about what investors might be looking for, the kinds of things that can help you really go through it in steps. Plus our judges, and of which we have 65 or 70 every year, provide feedback. And so they, in different stages, will tell contestants, hey, you should have a little more here, a little less there, and that can be highly
really
beneficial.
Helpful. Yep. I want to talk to you both about maybe a little broader context for this. And that's, you know, over the last few years, I think we've learned a couple of things. One, job growth is not as easy as we sometimes make it out to be. It's you can't just set a number and all of a sudden we're going to get there. Right. Particularly in the economy and what we're seeing the world change since the recession. And two, something that you both talked about over the years, which is that small business, startups, entrepreneurship is where job growth is going to occur. I mean, overwhelmingly, it's going to occur. Right. So, talk a little bit, Tom, just in terms of the business competition, in terms of that role in a very clear job growth strategy for this state.
Sure. A couple years ago, the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City, which looks at entrepreneurship around the country, did a study that concluded all net new jobs in the United States, that's all net new jobs, were created by young companies, those companies that are 5 years old or younger, that are just on their way up and out and doing the kinds of things that, to create jobs and economic activity that they should be. That's because at the top, now, certainly some larger companies are creating jobs all the time. Look no further than Epic Systems here in Verona. But also there are companies that are shedding jobs. And that whole process of creative destruction and getting more efficient means that at the top it sort of levels out more or less. But at the bottom, where it's pushing up, that's where you see a lot of the growth. So the reason we continue to do this contest and have found it so gratifying is precisely that it helps in that long-term job creation goal, because this creates new companies create jobs. So this brings it back to a stage where there can be some very direct benefit.
I want to get your perspective on this, Remus. We're going to take our last break and we'll do it when we come back right after this. I'm back with Tom Still, the president of the Wisconsin Technology Council, and Remus Buenavicius, who is the founder of Row Wheels, also the founder of Sonic Factory, some 20 years ago, I think. We're talking about the 2013 Governor's Business Plan Contest, the deadline for which is January 31st, and I urge you to go to the Wisconsin Technology Council website for details on that. But we were also talking about this idea of job creation and the importance of these small businesses in starting jobs. You've chosen this, Remus, as an entrepreneur and a small business starter. So I know you have personal experience with it, but just in terms of your relationships with other colleagues, the idea that I assume this has sufficient currency that you all know that you are the ones who are creating all of the new jobs in this new economy.
Yeah, and it attracts a certain type of employee as well. Early stage companies are the people that are comfortable working in that environment are special people in that they're able to handle risk better. They may have situations that allow them to deal with that. And you get a much different sort of a vibe and energy, if you will, in terms of that growth stage that can really help launch companies quickly. So a key that I've seen is that Madison has definitely become much more entrepreneurial. People are much more comfortable with that sort of a startup scenario. They realize that there may be other opportunities down the road, and that if the company doesn't work, they might not have to leave the town. That was a lot different 20 years ago. I mean, it was primarily a government university town. You didn't have business as sort of a third leg of the stool, if you will. So it's helped spawn a lot of entrepreneurship, and we've brought in entrepreneurs from the coasts who may have gone to school here, been experienced on the San Francisco, Boston, New York, Texas types of startup scenarios, big companies and what have you, the growth, but they want to come back here because it's a better quality of life, or they have a family here, want to raise their kids here. So we've seen, I think, really good successes from bringing folks back to Wisconsin as well.
I talked about job growth and the role of small businesses because I think people will understand that they've heard that before. If there was a third leg that we haven't talked about, it's capital, and that's gotten, just in the last 5-6 years, a steady drumbeat of the need for venture capital, angel capital here. How does this, your business and the business plan, translate into capital needs?
Well, you get more credibility if you win the business plan competition to at least get the meeting with people that might write a check and put money in. Yeah. And I've heard the statement that this is a shallow pond. It's a shallow pond in terms of capital. And so it's harder to find and source money here. One of my missions is to keep companies here. I've seen too many companies leave because of the lack of capital. But there is an opportunity, and I'm seeing capital showing up from the coast because they're seeing that the cost of labor here and the technology talent is equivalent to the coast, but the cost of labor is cheaper. And they believe that there's an opportunity there to make more money and not invest maybe as much as they'd have to do on a startup on the western East Coast. So I've seen numerous venture, angel, institutional entities showing up, starting to explore the opportunity here in Wisconsin.
It's improving, Tom. Is that your sense as well?
It is, although it has been a long road.
Yeah, it has.
You know, we do have the technology talent. We have the right, I think, business cost structure. There's a variety of other things working for us, but angel capital has gotten a lot better. We run the Wisconsin Angel Network. We've seen a dramatic rise in the number of networks and number of dollars at play, and those angels should be commended for what they're trying to do. They're
in virtually all regions of the state.
In virtually all regions of the state. It's now there are 12 different angel networks or funds that are outside the Madison and Milwaukee area. But it's still the shallow pond, as Remus described. That some of there aren't that many venture funds in Wisconsin, and while some are coming in, there's a need for more. That's why there's this discussion about a possible state leveraged venture capital and angel capital fund.
So important.
And that's already attracted some interest in the early requests for information from some major funds outside of Wisconsin. I think they recognize that there are deals here to be made, and that's a good thing. I think they understand the assets as we do, and that's a positive.
Thank you both very much for coming on. Again, the January 31st is the deadline for the Governor's Business Plan Contest, and you can find applications and good advice on how to proceed online at the website govbizplancontest.com. We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Tom and Remus for being here today. For the Record will be preempted next week for some football game. Yes, coverage does begin this early, but we will be back in 2 weeks with my guest, outgoing Madison College President Betsy Barhorst. See you in 2 weeks.
It actually starts Friday night.